welcome back. So this board's pretty full. This is what I have so many magnets for, and there's still a bunch on the desk for when I need them. But it is an interesting trade deadline that we're over 2.5 hours past its ending, its finish, and we still don't know the details, all the details of two major trades on this board. We know some of the details, but we don't know enough for me to actually put it on the board. But I'll go through what we have. First off, a trade that I like from Colorado's perspective. I know people don't. But Charlie Coyle has been a good foot soldier for the Boston Bruins, and I think he'll be good for Colorado. Also going to Colorado, a 2026 fifth-round pick. Going to Boston, Casey Middlestad, who's been on the trade rumors basically almost since he got in Colorado, it seems that there were rumors about how long he was going to be there. Also, forward William Zellers going to Boston, along with a 2025 second-round draft pick. So I think Boston did well. I think Colorado did too. I'm wearing a Colorado jersey because today I think they did a very good job of building themselves up as a contender for the Stanley Cup this time around. Ottawa, not sitting on their laurels either. Zetterlund has been acquired by Ottawa. I like Fabian Zetterlund. I think he's an underrated forward. I've said that since he was in New Jersey. Tristan Robbins, center, a prospect, goes to Ottawa as well as a fourth-round draft pick. I'm assuming in this year's draft, just, again, not all the details are necessarily out there. Going the other way, Noah Gregor goes back to San Jose. He's been a Shark before. Zach Ostapchuk going with him. As well as a 2025 second-round draft pick. So San Jose, I think, did pretty well here. They had another top two-round draft pick. They got a lot of them. San Jose's in good shape. Eric Johnson is headed back to Colorado. Another reason to wear an Avs jersey. Giovanni Smith going to Philly. Tortorella will like Giovanni Smith. A hitter, a guy who could drop the gloves. And Eric Johnson gets a chance to potentially win another Stanley Cup in what we assume is probably his final season, right? So the Avs are familiar with Johnson, and we've seen some trades this trade season where guys are going back to where they've been before. I think familiarity is important. Going to New Jersey, this is a trade that was just a one-for-one, it seemed, but now that the trade's been finalized, and we're going to see others like this, there's a little more involved. So Cody Glass and John Gruden both go to New Jersey. Both go to the New Jersey Devils. There we go. If I slow down a little bit. Going to Pittsburgh, a third-round pick in 2027, as well as Chase Stillman and Max Graham. So if you're like, who? Right, it's trade deadline day, but some of these names that are on the board that we say who about, and they may end up being hockey players at the NHL level. The Detroit Red Wings got Craig Smith and Peter Mrazek. Going to Chicago in that deal, Joe Veleno. Veleno gets a chance to probably, I would assume, play more in Chicago than he was in Detroit. We'll see what kind of ceiling he's got there. Maybe it'll be a better fit for him in Chicago. I think Craig Smith's had a good run recently for Chicago. Of course, one other thing with Chicago is they didn't fully sell everybody. Maroon's still there. Maybe Maroon signs for another season. And surprisingly, Donato's still there. Donato has had quite the run recently himself, but maybe Chicago figured that the price that they were being offered just wasn't worth it. And there's a lot of GMs right now having press conferences about what they didn't do at this deadline because they didn't like the return. For instance, Detroit, I've seen a lot of people angry at Yzerman for what he didn't get done, but he didn't want to trade first-round draft picks, and he didn't want to trade top prospects. And that's what teams were demanding of him for the parts that he was looking for to add to the team. Luke Cunnin traded to Columbus today. San Jose gets back a 2025 fourth-round draft pick in that transaction. Cunnin, depth player. Columbus, I think, probably a good fit there. We don't really know who the good fits are going to be yet, though, do we? That's the fun part of trade deadline, too, is that from now until the end of the season, we get to see who really fits well where. Brandon Tanev returns to Winnipeg, where he started, going to Seattle in that deal as a 2027 second-round pick. I think Seattle got good value there, even though it's a draft pick in 2 years. That's not too shabby. The Toronto Maple Leafs, Scott Lawton is headed to Toronto, along with a 2025 fourth-round pick and a 2027 sixth-round pick. Going to Philadelphia, the popular with Toronto fans, Nikita Gorobenkin, who is a right winger, and I think he'll fit in pretty well in Philadelphia. Maybe he's the new translator for Michkov because the other translator got traded. And a conditional 2027 first-round draft pick. Philadelphia is also retaining 50% of Lawton's cap hit. And I do like Lawton as an addition for Toronto because they've needed depth. We know they've needed depth. Luke Schenn is headed to the Winnipeg Jets, going to Pittsburgh, 2026 second-round pick and a 2027 fourth-round pick. I've seen some speculating that that might be an overpayment. I don't know. I think Luke Shen at this point in time is a good defenseman. I think he was having a good season in Nashville as it was, and I think he'll do just fine in Winnipeg. He's going to be on the third pairing anyways, so that I think is a good pick. Now this is a trade that just came out. Just came out. The Mark Jankowski has been added by Carolina in exchange for a 2026 fifth round pick. The fact that this came out 2.5 hours after the deadlines passed bewilders me because we've just seen this. This was just announced by the team, and I don't see any insiders talking about Carolina picking up Jankowski before that either. So before, as a Carolina fan, you think that they've given up on this season and because they traded Rantanen, hey, they got Jankowski. So former first round pick Mark Jankowski, thank you very much. A swap of two players who are in the minors trying to get their games back together. Brandstrom goes to the Buffalo Sabres. Obey Kubel, acquired by the New York Rangers in that trade. Obey Kubel can play fourth line minutes here and there. Brandstrom, I've talked about Brandstrom. I think he can be a good defenseman. GM's clearly not sold on him, coaches either, but at any rate, we'll see how things go for him in Buffalo. Another exchange of players of lower standing. Cholowski goes to New Jersey. And I'll say this to Cholowski. He's had some good moments with the Islanders this season. Adam Beckman going to the New York Islanders in this trade. And as I mentioned earlier, Paul Mary was removed from the trade block because they're planning on extending him. So Paul Mary's not on the board for that reason. Utah acquires a 2026 sixth round pick. And going the other way, 3 names going to Chicago. Victor Soderstrom, Aku Ratu, as well as Shea Weber. That's right. Shea Weber is now a member of the Chicago Blackhawks. He's never going to play again. But it is interesting to see Utah take the last Arizona contract that was there for a player who's never going to play for them. Pretty sure that's the last one. That contract's now gone. So Utah is a clean slate there. And they've got a couple of openings for signings when we get to signing season with NCAA players, which is coming up pretty quickly here. So that's why you'll see some trades of players without anything coming back, because that's a contract gone. You've got openings now for other contracts, and say NCAA season's upon us. Wyatt Johnston signs a 5-year extension with Dallas. I love the work Jim Nill did today. $8.4 million cap hit for Johnston. That's fantastic. Johnston's a very dynamic forward. He is just coming into his own, and I love what Dallas has put together. We may see a Stanley Cup for the Dallas Stars in the near future. I'd be a happy camper if that happened. It would be very, very unusual, wouldn't it, for a season to end with THG happy with who wins the Stanley Cup on a level that we haven't seen. Like, I've been happy about who wins the Stanley Cup, but if Dallas wins it, that's a whole other, just that next level to the... I don't want to say next level, because then I think about Chef Ramsay. Anyways, Vakanainen signs... Focus, THG. Vakanainen signs a 2-year extension with the New York Rangers. $1.55 million cap hit for Vakanainen. Good bottom pairing defenseman. I'm glad he's found a home with the New York Rangers. In the Rantanen deal, it's now known what Carolina gets. So from Dallas, they get a 2026 and a 2028 first round pick, and 2026 and 2027 third round draft picks going to Carolina in that deal. Andrei Kuzmenko, as I mentioned previously, Michkov's translator. This is what was seen as maybe being the role for Kuzmenko, but Kuzmenko doesn't stay in Philadelphia for very long. He has moved on to the LA Kings along with a 2025 seventh round pick. Going back to Philadelphia in that deal is a 2027 third round draft choice. So teams adding draft picks for next year's or the following year's drafts today. Kuzmenko, we know what he can do. He's been struggling to get the puck into the net this season at the rate, especially the rate he was doing it a few seasons back. But Kuzmenko can be a good bottom six forward, I think, at this point. So the LA Kings pick him up there. We'll see what he does for the Kings. The Edmonton Oilers announcing Evander Kane will not be returning before the end of the regular season, which means maybe he's coming back for game 1 of the playoffs. So everybody wondered who's going to do the whole LTIR thing this year. I present to you the Edmonton Oilers. It's within the rules. It's not something that's against the rules. And so the Oilers have used that the same as other teams have in past seasons, looking all the way back to I think it was the Chicago Blackhawks in 2015 with Patrick Kane, wasn't it? So yeah, this has been going on for around 10 years. GMs don't care. The owners don't seem to care either, although the caring seems to be going up a little bit more each year. We'll see if it changes this season. No, Vegas did not use LTIR to do a bunch of additions. In fact, Vegas isn't on the board. Sprong, added by the New Jersey Devils, who we knew were going to be buyers today, so they had Glass, Gruden, Cholowski, Sprong, just depth additions. A 2026 7th-round pick picked up by Seattle. So Seattle gets a draft pick. Yes, it's a 7th-round draft pick, but they get it on a player they picked up for really for nothing from Vancouver anyways. So Sprong moves on to New Jersey, and we'll see if he gets into any games for them or not. He's probably going to end up being in Utica. Utica could use some scoring. Last I looked, Utica's numbers weren't great. So, yeah, we'll see how things go there. And then down at the bottom, New Jersey also getting some work done on extending players. Kovacevic signs a 5-year extension, $4 million per season for Kovacevic. So that's $20 million for Kovacevic, who has been good for the New Jersey Devils this season. So the Florida Panthers have acquired Brad Marchand at the time I'm recording this, and I've waited 2.5 hours to see the return. I know a part of what the return is. We don't know the whole thing. And Brandon Carlo acquired from Boston by the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I've seen parts of and all of this. And okay, this guy's in, and this guy's in, and this. And it's a 3-way deal apparently also involving the Pittsburgh Penguins. But I waited 2.5 hours, and here we are, still without all of the specifics. So I will do another video once we know the specifics on Marchand and on Carlo and what was, going the other way and what things look like for them going forward. But at this point in time, that's all that I have to put on the board. All right. You guys all caught up? Good. Now we're going to go ahead and preview tonight's action, and I will apologize that this preview is so close to puck drop for everybody. But we have 6 games tonight in the NHL. There shouldn't be. The NHL should have trade deadline day go until 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern. I'm going to say it again. Not have NHL games on the schedule, and this will be what everybody's talking about and watching anyways. So tonight we have 2 games starting at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, 1 an hour and a half later, and then we have 3 later games as well. So 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, the Winnipeg Jets in New Jersey against the Devils. Winnipeg, of course, number 1 in the West. A couple of additions today, but the 43-16-4 Jets did not do anything major. They didn't need to. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10. New Jersey, on the other hand, clearly trying to shore things up. They're 33-24-6. They're 4-6 in their last 10. I'll repeat what I said in an answer to a question in the live stream. I do still think they are going to be a playoff team this season. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start between Detroit and Washington. Detroit 30-26-6. 4-5-1 over their last 10. Once again, Stevie Yzerman not wanting to put the future at risk for this season. I don't blame him. This Detroit team, whether they do or don't make the playoffs, is not winning the Stanley Cup. So the idea of trading first-round draft picks and top prospects to try to, increase your chances a little bit doesn't make sense. Washington 40-14-8 overall. They're 6-3-1 in their last 10. There's been some weakness in Washington's game recently. Maybe Detroit can pull off an upset there. 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. Utah is in Chicago against the Blackhawks. Utah 28-25-9 overall. They're 7-3 in their last 10, playing very well. Chicago 19-35-8 overall. They're 3-4-3 over their last 10. And an interesting thing with Chicago is because they didn't sell everybody, this is a team that's still not going to be awful. Sometimes coming out of the trade deadline, teams that have sold are just absolutely brutal, very difficult to watch, because there's just a bunch of recalls and there isn't really a good team out there. Chicago should still be fun to watch the rest of the way. One storyline to keep an eye on is, even though they're a lot of fun to watch, Bedard's been ice cold. So how do you straighten that out? We'll see if that starts tonight against Utah, but that should be a fun one to watch. 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific start. Minnesota in Vancouver against the Vancouver Canucks. Minnesota 36-22-4 overall. They're 5-5 in their last 10. Vancouver 28-22-11 overall. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10. The Minnesota Wild, Bill Guerin believes in the team, and I know people are mad that Minnesota didn't do more, but he believes in the team they have, and a lot of their key guys are hurt. So, there's only so much that he can do, right? On the Vancouver side, of course, Vancouver fans are really upset with how this deadline went. And Alvin's discussion about how he wasn't being offered a price for Besser that he felt was worth it. Canuck fans aren't having it, so just accept whatever. It does not sound like the offers for Besser were great. So he just decided, forget it, we're just going to keep things as they are then, which Canuck fans don't like. 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific start. Pittsburgh in Vegas against the Golden Knights. Pittsburgh 24-30-10 overall, 2-6-2 in their last 10. They've sold off. So Pittsburgh may very well get worse. Unlike Chicago, it does feel like Pittsburgh just sold off players that they could. Vegas 37, 18, and 6 overall. They're 6, 3, and 1 in their last 10. One thing with Pittsburgh I can mention here, though, too, they did keep Raquel. So while Pittsburgh's lost some pieces from their roster, they did keep Rickard Raquel. I think it makes sense. He plays really well there, and I mean, you don't want to just trade everybody, right? The Vegas Golden Knights were quiet today. So people are going to be confused. They're going to be like, what is this feeling? You're not enraged with Vegas. I know it's weird, isn't it? But yeah, people are not angry with Vegas today. Vegas isn't like using LTIR to artificially do anything. It's just strange, isn't it? 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific start. St. Louis in Anaheim against the Ducks. St. Louis 30, 27, and 6 overall. They're 6, 2, and 2 in their last 10. And they have every chance in the world of ending up in a playoff spot. Despite Vancouver not selling off and things staying largely the same, Vancouver's still in a very precarious position. And there does seem to be a lot of dysfunction when it comes to the team and all of that fun stuff. So there's still a spot if St. Louis decides to grab it, keeping in mind Calgary's 1 point ahead of Vancouver anyways. So it's Calgary they're trying to chase down. But Calgary's not really a juggernaut either, so there's an opening, which Utah's trying to charge through as well. Anaheim wants to stay in the conversation. If they want to stay in that conversation, they need a regulation win tonight against St. Louis, and they're going to need some help along the way. They're 27, 27, and 7 overall. They're 6, 3, and 1 over their last 10. But Anaheim, I think, is surprising people with the fact that they're as good as they are. And it's legitimate. They are as good as they look. This 6, 3, and 1 over their last 10 is not just them sneaking up on people. They are actually a good team. So let me know your picks for tonight's games. And again, I do apologize that this is at the time that it is. I will be doing, obviously, another news video later where we'll be discussing the actual returns on the Marchand and Carlo deals, as well as anything else that leaks out between now and then, because it's only 2.5 hours after the deadline. So why wouldn't there still be trades leaking out? But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And yeah, and I'll be doing tomorrow's preview along with the video later on tonight where I discuss the returns on those other trades. So thank you guys so much for all your support. It's greatly appreciated. Great live stream today. Thank you to everybody who attended. And if you weren't able to attend, hopefully you make it to the next one. That being said, I will talk to you again soon.